Hello, ghosties. You're listening to Not My Ghost.
Not My Problem. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jen.
Whether you're a skeptic, a true believer, or somewhere in between, join us for a journey into the unknown.
Because remember, when it comes to the paranormal, it may not be our problem.
But it's certainly someone's problem.
Hey, Kelly.
Yes?
Are you going to tell me the story about how you hurt your arm and why it's in a sling?
Sure. My husband and I got some e-bikes back in March. And one of our favorite things to do in the evenings is to go for bike rides. Now, of course, it's getting darker sooner because we're losing the sun. We've been driving around different neighborhoods in our community, just looking for Halloween decorations. And I told my husband, it's starting to get dark. Why don't we go over across the main road, back over closer to our house, and we can look for Halloween decorations over there. So we ride our happy little asses over there on the bikes, and we go to this whole huge neighborhood, and not one of them had a Halloween decoration up. But there is a sidewalk. We call it a trail. It's not really like a trail through the woods. It's a sidewalk that connects one neighborhood to another neighborhood. So my husband said, why don't we just take that little trail and go over to the other neighborhood? And I said, sure. So I was first on the bike. It's dark out. We do have a headlight on the bike, but it's still pretty dark. And there's a bush completely covering the sidewalk. I can't see around the bush. And I'm not going very fast at all, but I go to the left to go around the bush, and there was about 6 inches of mud that had washed onto the sidewalk because we've had a ton of rain.
Oh, gross.
And as soon as I realized that this was mud, my bike was already sliding out of control. And then I face planted into a thorn bush.
That's a good thing to face plant into.
Luckily, my daughter got me biking gloves for, I think, my birthday that have pads on the palms.
Did she get you a face glove?
Well, my hands landed in front of my face.
Okay.
So the thorns, most of them went into the pads on the glove. Some of them did. I did have one go into my neck, and I had a bunch of scratches on my arms. And I'm just, as soon as I felt both arms hurt. But I knew that my right arm was like, oh, this is not good. And I had numbness going all the way down to my hand. Then I thought, I'm just freaking out. My husband helps me up. And I go to stretch my arm out, and I'm like, oh, no. Ooh. I really hurt my arm. Also, I'm very upset because now I am covered, and I mean covered in mud. And my husband is like, we got to get you to the ER. And I'm like, I can't. I have to take a shower. So we agreed that I would not take a shower, but he would let me change clothes.
Oh, that's good.
And I did not break my arm, but I did sprain my elbow pretty bad. And I have bruised my sternum, and I have bruises all over my thighs and scratches all up and down my arms, but I am okay. And it could have been so much worse.
It definitely could have been.
I'm grateful that it wasn't worse.
Yes, me too.
But it was not a fun time.
I can only imagine. I also just want to point out, if you guys are hearing some noise, it just started raining here, and it is coming down very hard, and I'm sitting right next to a window.
Is that the big storm blowing through?
I guess it could be Milton. I don't know. It could be the rain before Milton. I don't really think it's supposed to be in our area until tomorrow.
That's pretty big, though. It might be just throwing something over your way.
Yeah, if you look at the radar, it doesn't really look like it's a part of it, but could just also be coming off of the end. But yeah, so that's fun. Getting ready for the second hurricane in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's great. That's what happens when you live in Florida.
You better be safe because I need you.
Yeah, well.
Not just to edit these episodes.
Yeah, unfortunately, if something happened to me, you couldn't do the podcast anymore.
Well, I would just have to release an unedited audio version.
Yes. And no offense, it wouldn't be as good without me.
Not at all.
No. It wouldn't be as good without you.
I need you to be okay just because I need you to be okay because you're my bestie. And without you, I don't know what I would do.
Aw.
I also just want to take a moment, just a little moment, to shout out a fan of our podcast.
Oh.
My friend Stacy and her
Hi,
husband
Stacy.
and her husband Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Both listen to the podcast. Stacy got a little bit behind and Ben is caught up. He's current. He's like, I listen to these episodes when they come out.
Yay.
So he's telling Stacy, come on, Stacy, you got to catch up. So Ben and Stacy, thank you so much for your support. It means the world to us.
Yes, it does. Thank you. We hope that we bring you entertaining content every week.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Hopefully.
So I just realized, by the way, we are way into our scripted, unscripted banter.
Way into it. Almost done with it.
Almost done to it. And actually kind of done with it because I forgot to write a question.
Oh, you've been so bad at this lately.
I have been. Do you have a dog barking? Or am I hearing things?
It's my neighbors. Let me, hold on. I didn't realize the bedroom window was open.
Okay.
Let me go close that. That neighbor's fucking dog won't ever shut up.
Oh, I got 2 of them that are that way. So back into me sucking for not writing a question.
Yeah. You've been pretty terrible at remembering to write questions lately.
I know. It's because I do the whole research. And then after I do the research, my ADHD brain is fried. And then I forget to scroll back up to the top where we have the question written in. And then I get here to do the episode. And I'm like, scroll. Oh, shit. I don't have a question for you.
That's okay. I had a fun story to share.
You did.
About
so it worked out.
Today.
Exactly. My question was, how did you hurt your arm? That was I did have a question.
There you go.
It worked.
Awesome.
Are you ready then to get into today's episode?
I am ready.
Okay.
Give it to me.
Oh, I'll give it to you. Today, we're going to discuss the real life inspiration beyond one of the most iconic paranormal films in history and Kelly's favorite paranormal film in history, Poltergeist.
Yay! I love it.
While the movie is often seen as pure Hollywood horror, it is actually based in part, very loosely, on a true story. But believe me, the truth is, actually, I don't want to say the truth is just as creepy as the movie, but it's pretty creepy. The movie was pretty creepy, though. So grab your sage and maybe a bottle of holy water if you have one, and settle in as we explore the Herman House, a real-life poltergeist story that terrorized a suburban family in the 1950s.
I cannot wait because I know nothing of this story at all.
I know. I didn't either until I started researching it. And I really couldn't find a lot of stuff online. And I was like, shit, this is going to be a really short, boring episode. And then I found a book. Well, actually, there were 2 books that I found that I got a lot of information from. I think the biggest one was The Poltergeist Phenomenon. By Michael Clarkson. And then there was another one I got a little information called Popper, the Poltergeist, which you'll understand that in a bit, by Megan Atwood. So I just want to shout those out because I got a lot of my information from those 2 books.
Okay. I'm hoping I'm not as frustrated as this episode as I was at the last episode I knew nothing about.
I don't think it'll be quite as bad as the Chupacabra.
Okay.
I think you'll be fine. Before we get started, though, I want to give you some fun facts about Long Island, because that is where this takes place.
All right.
Long Island is often credited with being the birthplace of the American suburb. After World War II, the development of Levittown in Nassau County marked the beginning of suburban living in the U.S.
Okay, that's interesting.
That was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long Island has its own thriving wine region, which how did I not know that? The North Fork area is famous for its vineyards and wine tastings. The North Fork area is famous for its vineyards and wine tastings, attracting visitors from all over to enjoy the scenic vineyards.
Yet another place we need to visit.
Yes, exactly. And now, in addition to the rain, my upstairs neighbors are vacuuming. So you also might hear that in the sound.
It is so loud. It is so loud up there when they vacuum.
I do my best to edit it out, but if I'm talking and it's in the background, it's really hard to. Built in 1796, the Montauk Point Lighthouse is New York's oldest lighthouse. It offers beautiful panoramic views of the Atlantic Ocean and is a very beloved historical site.
I bet you that lighthouse is haunted.
It probably is. They always are. I will definitely look into it. Ready for some scary facts?
Yes, I am.
One of the most infamous abandoned mental hospitals in the U.S., Kings Park Psychiatric Center, has become a hotspot for ghost hunters. Stories of eerie noises, shadowy figures, and haunted halls still circulate to this day. Now, I do know it said infamous, but I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it either. That's what I was just going to say. I don't think I've ever heard of this one.
No, but it is on my list to look up.
Yes.
And visit. We go ghost hunt if it's open, a psychiatric center, and then go drink some wine.
Of course.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Then we can also visit Sweet Hollow Road and Mount Misery Road, which is in Huntington. They are notorious for ghost sightings and urban legends. People have reported seeing the spirits of mysterious hitchhikers, phantom cars, and even a nurse who supposedly haunts this area.
Did I ever tell you about the ghost guy on a bike that I used to see all the time when I lived in Pasadena when I was a teenager?
No.
When I would come home late at night, there was on the same spot of this road.
Why were you coming home late at night as a teenager, Kelly?
Well, 18, 19.
Okay, fair. I was just making sure you weren't like 14 coming home at like midnight.
No, like when I was driving a car coming home late at night. There was this spot on this road that every time I would go to drive down it, I would see a man. It looked like a man because it was from behind on a bike. And then I would get up to pass him and he wouldn't be there.
Weird.
It scared me so much that I started taking a different road to get to our house. But I never told anyone because I thought that they would think I was crazy.
Yeah. Now you can tell everybody on here because none of us think you're crazy.
No.
And if they do, then they can fuck off.
Yeah.
Right. But they don't because they're our fans and they love us.
Yay.
And then what I did not know when I started researching this was the Hermans, which is the family that this whole story is based off of, live about 5 miles away from the Amityville Horror House.
Well, that's weird.
Yes. Isn't it?
Yeah. Ooh, I'm excited about this episode, Jen.
Me too.
Give it to me.
That was just in like random passing as I was reading something. It was like, oh, and they were only about 5 miles away from Amityville. I'm like, what? How is that not a bigger thing?
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Kelly, before we get into the story, because we are talking about a slightly different type of ghost, I want to get into a little information about exactly what a poltergeist is.
Okay.
So most of you have probably seen the movie or have heard of poltergeist in some way, but they are they're unlike any other typical ghostly encounter that we think about. Poltergeists are known for noisy, chaotic behavior and making their presence felt in a very dramatic and often terrifying way. The word itself comes from German poltron, meaning to make noise, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I apologize, and Geist, meaning spirit or ghost. And that's exactly what poltergeists do. They make a lot of noise.
Poltergeist sounds better than make noise ghost.
Make noise ghost, yeah, exactly. They make their presence known by moving objects, creating disturbances, and just generally fostering a really eerie atmosphere.
I had some poltergeist activity in our old house, but we can get to all of that at a later time.
Yeah. Unlike traditional hauntings, which might include ghostly apparitions or cold spots, poltergeists specialize in physical activity. So in these instances, you'll see objects flying through the air, lights will flicker on and off, you'll hear strange noises. Sometimes things even escalate further to where there's actual scratches or physical attacks that have been reported in some poltergeist cases. What makes poltergeists even more intriguing is that they often seem to center around a particular person, typically an adolescent, especially girls that are going through puberty. Some believe that the emotional stress or hormonal changes might trigger these strange events, making the person themselves the key to the mystery.
Huh.
Yeah. There are many theories about poltergeists, and they aren't necessarily thought to be a restless spirit. Some experts believe that they could be a form of psychokinesis, where a person is unwillingly moving objects or causing disturbances using the power of their mind.
Unwillingly or unknowingly?
Both.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, like, because if you're unwillingly do it, but you know you're doing it, that would be pretty wild.
Unknowingly is what I meant to say, but also unwillingly.
Yeah.
Because generally the person that it surrounds, the poltergeist surrounds, is also usually afraid and scared of the situation.
Yeah.
People think that poltergeists aren't necessarily a spirit at all, but sometimes just the result of that built up emotional energy that's being released in this, uncontrollable way.
Okay.
Nearly every culture around the world has stories of poltergeist-like entities, anywhere from Europe to Asia to the US. Some of these tales have even become world famous, like the Enfield poltergeist in London, which inspires The Conjuring 2, which I've actually not seen The Conjuring 2.
The Conjuring 2.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out which one that would. Oh, I know that one. Okay. I know it.
Yeah, it's on my list.
It's really good.
Oh, this week I just watched Annabelle for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never seen that.
One time, Emily and I went to the movies. We have like a cheaper movie theater around here. And it was when Annabelle Comes Home came out. And we went to see it. It was during the fall. It was dark outside. And we were literally the only people besides two workers in the building. And it was so creepy watching that movie.
That's creepy.
It was pretty cool, though.
Yeah. Okay, so usually poltergeists will terrorize a family for days, months, or even years. And then generally the activity just usually stops unexpectedly, just as unexpectedly as it began. And it usually leaves behind a lot more questions than it does answers.
They said that in the movie.
Did they?
They were worried that the activity would just stop and they'd never be able to get Carol Ann back.
Oh, that's right, because she went into the TV.
Well, she went into the closet and she communicated through the TV.
Through the TV. Sorry, I haven't seen the movie in years.
Yeah.
But of course, as with anything paranormal, not all poltergeist stories are genuine. There have been several different stories that have been exposed as hoaxes or pranks being pulled by different people that were just seeking attention.
Yeah.
Still, the cases that defy explanation continue to capture our imaginations, inspiring countless movies, books, and TV shows. Some people ask, what are poltergeists? Are they restless spirits? Are they a subconscious manifestation of psychokinetic energy? That's a mouthful. Or are they just elaborate hoaxes? Some of the most intriguing cases of poltergeist activity have actually involved the police. There was a police station in Rommel, and I didn't mark where that was. It just says Rommel, so I have no idea. But there was a police station somewhere named Rommel, and there was a dozen officers in that police station that claimed that they experienced poltergeist phenomena. Firsthand. It must be someplace in Europe because the person I talk about is listed as constable. So, and I know that's what they call their police in Europe. So Constable Debar reported that an unseen force terrorized the station for over a month. They had chairs that were overturned, furniture moved, and some of the officers were even physically attacked. They were pushed off tables, strangled in the night, or even feeling like they were being crushed by an invisible force.
That's no good.
No. And this was a police station. So these are police officers that are reporting this. The situation became so terrifying that the officers would huddle near the entrance as soon as the sun went down.
That's wild.
Yes.
These are the people that are supposed to run towards chaos and mayhem and bad people.
Right, but they can stop bad people. They can't stop poltergeists, clearly.
Yeah.
But this was far from an isolated incident. Since 1952, at least 51 police officers across 17 cases have reported witnessing poltergeist activity firsthand. More than a dozen of them were reportedly physically assaulted by an unseen force, with one officer even pulling his gun on what he believed to be a poltergeist.
I would be afraid if I shot the gun at a poltergeist, it would catch the bullet and throw it back at me.
I wasn't afraid of that until now, so.
Happy to help.
Thanks, appreciate that. And you'll kind of understand in a minute why I included information about police officers. There may be one in the actual case that we're going to talk about.
Maybe.
She
doesn't know, though.
I don't know. I did this research like a week ago. Who remembers? Okay, now we're going to talk about the Herman house haunting, which again is the story that the movie Poltergeist was very loosely based off of. And okay. I say very loosely because there is nothing in common except the fact that there was a poltergeist.
Okay.
That's it. But I guess in that time frame, there was like, oh, this is someone experiencing a poltergeist. We haven't really seen this before, so let's make a movie about it. Yeah. For many years, James and Lucille Herman led a rather ordinary life. James was employed by Air France in New York City, while Lucille worked as a nurse. They had 2 children, Lucy, who was 13, and Jimmy, who was 12. They lived in a 1950s ranch-style house in Seaford, Long Island, approximately 30 minutes outside of New York City. On February 3rd, 1958, is when the peaceful life of the Herman family took a very sudden turn. It started off as just an ordinary Monday for the Hermans. As usual, Miss Herman was at home. She was waiting to welcome her children back from school. And shortly after Lucy and Jimmy arrived at home, all 3 of them were startled by loud popping noises that seemed to be coming from multiple rooms simultaneously. And then the sound happened again. Pop, pop, pop. Throughout the house, the lids of numerous bottles had unexpectedly popped open. In the bathroom, the lid of a shampoo bottle and a medicine bottle had popped open, while in the kitchen, the lid on a bottle of starch had also popped off. And there was a bottle of holy water in Mr. and Mrs. Herman's bedroom, because, who doesn't keep a bottle of holy water in their bedroom?
Right.
That's pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
Well, that lid had also popped off, and that resulted in the liquid spilling all around the bottle as it kind of rolled around. Upon inspection, the family discovered that the spills from the bottle were fresh. And what puzzled them most is that all the lids were screw-ons, requiring several turns to be popped off. It is possible to use air pressure to make the bottle cap pop off, but the bottle must be empty in order for this to be able to happen.
Okay.
And they were not empty.
No.
Miss Herman was more confused than she was scared because, at that point, you're probably not thinking, oh, it's a poltergeist.
Right.
You're just like, what the hell just happened? Why did all these bottles just pop open? She called her husband to see if he had any idea of what could have caused it, right? That's got to be a fun call to get from your wife while you're at work. Hey, honey, all the bottles just popped open. Any idea what could have done that?
It was the 50s. She's lucky she didn't get put in an asylum.
I know, right? Mr. Herman was just as confused when he received this strange call from his wife. His first concern was to make sure that nobody was injured because, of course, you received that call from your wife. You're like, well, someone had to be hurt. Why else are you calling me?
Right.
Because it seems kind of strange. And he just decided that it was some weird occurrence and nothing to be too concerned about. By the time he got home that evening, everything was back to normal. And it wasn't until a few days later on February 6th. So remember, this first time it happened was February 3rd. So 3 days later, the exact same thing happened at the exact same time. So right as the kids were getting home from school.
That's crazy.
And then it happened again the next day.
Same time?
Same time.
Ooh,
yes.
Spooky.
Mr. Herman still had not witnessed anything strange because he was at work the first 3 times that this had happened. But on February 9th, which was a Sunday, it happened again, and he finally witnessed it for himself. The family couldn't identify any scientific reason for the bottles to be popping open, but Mr. Herman was not convinced that it was anything paranormal because, again, in the 50s especially, who's thinking that's paranormal?
Right.
He suspected that their son Jimmy had something to do with it.
They always blame the kids.
They do always blame the kids. They do. But Jimmy was very interested in science in school. So Mr. Herman was thinking maybe it was some type of experiment he was trying to do. And he spent the next couple of days observing him to see if he was doing anything to make the lids pop off. He didn't find anything. Jimmy didn't see Jimmy try to do anything. And he finally asked Jimmy about it because, again, he was convinced it was some sort of science experiment. Okay. So he happened to be in the bathroom when he confronted his son about this. And as soon as he started talking to his son about it, a bottle of shampoo and medicine bottle moved on their own. So the lids didn't pop off, but the bottles moved.
Okay.
At this point, Mr. Herman said, there is no way. I'm standing here. I'm staring at Jimmy. There's no way he could have made this happen. And Jimmy also, again, denied that he had anything to do with it. And again, This is the 50s, late 50s. So there's not as much technology that people could think of to make a bottle move. It wasn't like there was a little remote control car inside the bottle that Jimmy had a remote in his pocket. That wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And Mr. Herman believed his son, but he had had enough with these strange occurrences. So he decided it was time to call the police. I don't know what he thought the police could do in this situation.
I don't know. What would you say to the police?
I don't know, but apparently, as I said earlier, police have experienced poltergeist a lot. So I guess it happens in a lot of situations where people don't know what to do, so they call the police.
Okay.
Yeah. James Hughes, who was the police officer that was sent out to the Hermans' house, he was very skeptical of the whole thing. Lids popping off and things moving on their own, it just sounded like a prank to him and a waste of his time. Fair enough. I would probably have thought the same thing at that time.
Right. Or there was a mental health issue going on with someone in the house.
That too. They probably weren't thinking that at the time, though, because it was the 50s. But while he was taking notes and asking the Hermans to explain their story, he saw and heard a bottle popping open.
Okay.
So he was like, okay, out of my hands. This is too much for me. So on February 11th, Detective Tozy was assigned to the case. Now, Detective Tozy was also a skeptic, and he did not believe in anything paranormal. But his beliefs were challenged pretty quickly. Shortly after him arriving at the home, a perfume bottle spilled over. And at this point, the detective decided that he needed to stay at the house, right? He needed to observe the happenings, which I thought was kind of strange because I don't really think that happens nowadays, but maybe I wasn't alive in the 50s, so who knows? But he was staying at the house, and he wanted to stay to be able to document what was happening and try to figure it out.
Okay.
During the next few days, he witnessed several other unexplainable events, like objects falling over, more lids popping off, and more things moving on their own. One of the most common items that was disturbed at the Hermans' home was that bottle of holy water. The lid popped off and the bottle spilled repeatedly. Now, again, not only do you have a bottle of holy water in your room, which is kind of strange. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not. But then you're refilling it.
That's what I was just going to ask. Like, they went to the... Okay, I'm not going to lie. If all of this weird stuff was going on in the house, I could then see, like, I don't know what's happening, but maybe we should refill this holy water.
That's fair. What would the priest at that church think? Like, these people are coming in way too much to get holy water. What is happening?
We got demons, Father.
What demon is going on there? And the weirdest thing about the bottle of holy water, when Tozy, the detective, picked it up, the water felt warm to the touch.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. But when it wasn't spilled, the water was just normal temperature.
Okay.
On February 15th, the kids were watching TV with their cousin, which, again, another side note here. If I had a child and my brother was having all these weird things happening at his house, I am not going to be like, yeah, go over his house.
I don't think anything's been particularly dangerous or anything, though, at this point. Well, at this point.
I know, but I still don't know if I would just send I guess I don't know how old the cousin is.
I don't know. Like, you came to my house, so.
I did, but I was an adult and I wanted to experience the paranormal.
Also, you have to think about this, too. back in the 50s, people were very private about things that went on in their home. So
Very
it's possible that their sibling didn't even know that this was happening at the house.
That's true. That's probably most likely. But anyway, they were all sitting there watching TV, and a figurine on the end table suddenly rose up and wiggled in the air before shooting across the room and falling to the floor.
Nice.
Yeah. So now things were starting to get a little more violent, I would say. Things, flying across the air. And the Hermans decided that it was time to call their priest, who, again, I'm sure already kind of knew something was going on because they were at the church every other day filling up their bottle of holy water. Father McLeod came to the house on February 17th. He blessed the house and sprinkled holy water in every room. But it didn't work. Obviously, it didn't work. Holy water was already being sprinkled in the bedroom on a daily basis.
I was just going to say, the poltergeist itself is sprinkling holy water around the house.
Exactly. After the priest left, Detective Tazi was almost hit by a globe that flew off of a shelf.
Okay.
He also witnessed a record player fly across the room. The blessing seemed to actually make things worse.
I think I may have seen a documentary about this house.
Oh.
I'm not sure, but after we're done recording this episode, I'm going to look, and if I see it, I'll send it to you or tell you the name of it.
Okay. News of the haunting spread fast, and soon the story became a national sensation, even being covered on TV. It wasn't just light objects like bottles that were being affected. Now, larger and heavier items were also starting to move on their own. As I said, a globe and a record player. A popular TV series called Armstrong Circle Theater brought cameras to the home. Now, of course, as it happens, nothing was caught on camera because it never is. But the show interviewed the witnesses and documented the damage that was done to the house as a result of the hauntings. This was considered to be the first ever televised haunting, and the press gave the poltergeist a name, Popper.
Okay.
Because of all the bottles that were popping open.
Yep.
So he was Popper. The family was inundated with calls, letters, and surprise visits. The phone rang constantly, and one day they received 75 phone calls.
That's a lot of phone calls.
That is a lot of phone calls. Fortunately, Detective Tazi was there helping out. The letters they received were often suggestions on what could be happening to their house, because of course everybody has an opinion.
Right.
And everybody's got to tell you their opinion.
Right.
Some people believed that it was aliens.
Sure.
Yeah. Others thought the Hermans had brought it on themselves, and some even thought that they were making everything up.
Brought it on themselves?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like witchcraft or something, or demon? I don't know.
Probably. It was the 50s. When was the Satanic Panic?
I think there's been several satanic panics. Back when I was younger, I think it was like in the late 80s, early 90s. And now we're having another one, but it's Taylor Swift. Which makes me laugh every time.
Wait, are people saying Taylor Swift is Satan?
They're saying that she's practices witchcraft at her shows and that she's not really a Christian like she says, and she's being influenced by Satan. And
I practice witchcraft.
Well, I know how scary you and Taylor Swift can be, so...
I mean, we're pretty terrifying. You know, she's a childless cat lady. I'm a childless dog lady. So together we could really cause
some magic.
Some stirs. It looked like the 80s was the beginning of the official, what they classify as the Satanic Panic. So not quite in the 50s. But I'm still sure that people believed that they could have done it themselves.
Yeah.
Detective Tazi was still staying with the family. He helped answer the phone calls and read through the letters, as he was determined to find a logical explanation for the events. Again, he was witnessing all this, but he was a skeptic. So he just, in his head, something logical had to come up. One person said the idea of what the events could be was caused by sonic booms from airplanes above. But experts had ruled this out, and I can't go into the science.
You'd hear a sonic boom. You wouldn't hear the popping of the bottles. You would hear this sonic boom.
This is the 50s, Kelly.
I don't think it took too many experts to rule that out.
Probably not. Another theory that Tazi had, and I don't know if he had this or if he got it from a call or a letter, but it just said he had it, was that radio wave frequencies were causing the events. But this was also eventually disproven.
I don't know how radio waves would do it.
No, I don't really either. But again, this is the 50s. They don't have nearly as much knowledge as we do. Then you had Robert Zeider, who was a physicist who came out to the house to see if he could find an explanation. He thought that underground streams could have caused a strong magnetic occurrence in the house. But during his investigation, he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. So that theory was
interesting.
debunked.
Robert Zeider was a physicist that the family of Roland Doe, the true story behind The Exorcist, the family contacted him at one point.
Oh, wow.
And he just, nothing real to add to the conversation.
Kind of like in this situation.
Yeah.
He's like, why are all these people contacting me for their demons and ghosts?
Well, they're 5 miles down the road. They were probably like, hey.
No, this is Amityville, not 5 miles from The Exorcist.
Oh, that's right. Exorcist was
Maryland / St. Louis.
Maryland, right.
Yeah. Not far, if that's where when they were from Maryland, New York. Close enough.
Far for the 50s, though.
Yeah, that's fair. 4 different engineers came out to the house as well. All of them did their own investigations and experiments. None of them could find anything out of the ordinary. But the events in the house just kept getting worse. A sugar bowl levitated in the air before crashing down on the floor. A bottle of ink smashed against the wall. And at this point, Detective Tazi and the family were all concerned about how violent things were getting. On February 24th, a journalist named John Gold was visiting the house, and he witnessed light bulbs from his camera float up in the air before shattering.
Nice.
Yeah, he also saw a centerpiece fly across the room and crash into the wall.
Okay.
So other people outside of the family and the detective were experiencing things. No one ever caught it on camera. On February 25th, parapsychologist Dr. J. Gaither Pratt and Dr. William Roll from Duke University came to stay at the home. There's a lot of people in this home.
Yeah.
They stayed for 3 days, but Popper had decided to become quiet, and they didn't experience anything during their stay, because of course they didn't.
Right.
Even though they didn't experience any activity, they had a theory. The poltergeist activity could be linked to the hormonal changes happening in the 2 teenagers. While this idea may sound outlandish today, this concept of teenage energy influencing poltergeist activity was a popular theory among paranormal researchers at the time.
Smells like teen spirit.
Popper was quiet for 2 days after the doctors left, but then on March 2nd, a dish crashed to the floor, a night table in Jimmy's room fell over, and on March 4th, a vase of flowers flew off the table. The events finally came to a stop on March 10th, 1958, as abruptly as they had started. And just like that, the Herman's family month of terror ended. But between February 3rd and March 10th, there were 67 reported instances of poltergeist activity.
That's wild.
Yeah. In just a month, 67 reported instances. While we may never know what caused these disturbances, the haunting left a lasting impact on paranormal history and inspired, very loosely, the terrifying poltergeist movie we know today.
Okay.
Now, while the Herman family faced moving bottles and strange noises, poltergeist director Tobe Hooper and writer Steven Spielberg took things just a little bit further, right? Just a teeny bit. Yeah. In the films, we see everything from kitchen cabinets flying open to trees coming alive and attacking people.
And trying to eat them.
This story's poltergeists prey on the young Freeling family with a particular interest in the 5-year-old Carol Ann, who famously declares, "They're here." In the movie, the spirit activity escalates dramatically from simple pranks like bent kitchenware to full-on terror with skeletons rising from the earth and portals to the afterlife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That tree, by the way, that tree came alive and tried to eat the brother Robbie just to distract the family, to get them outside to try to save Robbie so it could suck Carol Ann into the closet and take her away.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just
natural.
As you do.
As one does.
Yeah.
While this may not have been the Herman's family experience, the sense of chaos and helplessness does ring true to anyone who has experienced this type of haunting. Similar to The Exorcist that we talked about, I don't know when it came out at this point. My episodes are all getting mixed up. But before this one, there is an alleged curse that is linked to the filming of the Poltergeist. And this is due to a series of tragic and unsettling events that befell the cast and crew during filming. These events include untimely deaths of some actors, and it led many to believe that something darker was at play. Now, the movie was released on June 4th, 1982. And I just want to give you that date so you can see how far apart all these deaths happened. The core of the so-called curse revolves around the death of 4 cast members during and shortly after the production of the Poltergeist trilogy. 2 of these deaths were sudden and baffling, fueling fan speculation that the films themselves carried an ominous presence. Heather O'Rourke played the young protagonist, Carol Ann, and kind of became the face of Poltergeist series with her iconic blonde hair and her innocent, wide-eyed appearance. She was only 6 years old when the film first released, but her life was cut tragically short. In 1987, O'Rourke was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease. The following year, she developed severe flu-like symptoms and collapsed and suffered cardiac arrest. She was airlifted to the hospital where she died during emergency surgery for bowel obstruction. And this was in February 1988, which was 6 years after the movie was released.
Yeah. There were several movies, though.
Yes,
she was in,
that's
there
true.
was Poltergeist 2. I think she was also in 3.
Yeah. Probably. I didn't get the dates for the other ones, but.
Yeah.
Then there was Dominique Dune, and she played the older sister, Dana Freeling. And she also tragically met a violent end. Now, on November 4th, 1982, at the age of 22, and this was only 4 months after the movie was released, her and her partner, John Sweeney, broke up. And Dune was assaulted by John outside of her home. Sweeney strangled her in a fit of rage, leaving her unconscious in her driveway, and she died after being in a coma for several days. Sweeney was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, but he only served 3 years and 7 months of his sentence.
Voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah. I don't get how that's not murder, but isn't manslaughter like you kill someone in like an accident or a car accident?
It's usually unintentional.
Yeah.
I wonder if voluntary manslaughter is like second degree or something, murder. Because it's like, I know that like murder 1 is like, I think it's like planned out.
Yeah. First degree is planned.
And maybe this was some kind of they got in a fight and it got heated and he killed her. So it wasn't like.
Or maybe it was, he didn't necessarily mean to kill her. He just meant to strangle her and she died.
Yeah, I guess.
That's probably more so what it is.
Yeah.
He did it voluntarily. He didn't like, involuntary would be like you hit somebody you ran a red light and you hit somebody and they died.
Yeah. All right. I like your explanation better. So we'll go with that. I know,
I'm pretty smart. Then there was Julian Beck and Will Sampson. Now, these 2 deaths, while unfortunate, they weren't as shocking. Julian Beck played the preacher, Cain, in Poltergeist 2.
Spooky guy.
He had been battling stomach cancer when he took the role, and he passed away in 1985, just after finishing his work on the film.
It probably explains a lot of why he looked the way that he did if he was battling cancer at the same time.
Yeah, probably. Then there was Will Sampson, who played Taylor, the Native American shaman in the same movie. He died a year later after undergoing a risky heart and lung transplant. Given the low survival rate for the procedure at the time, his death was less unexpected, but still some contributed to the eerie sense of doom surrounding the whole production.
Yeah.
Then there were some other odd occurrences and creepy things that happened on set that also contributed to the lore of this curse. Jo Beth Williams, who played Diane Freeling, claimed that director Steven Spielberg insisted on using real human skeletons during a pivotal scene in an effort to cut cost, which ironically at the time, skeletons were cheaper than the plastic replicas. Don't understand how or why, but they were. This claim has never officially been confirmed, but it has become one of the most persistent stories that was tied to the Poltergeist curse.
There's a meme that I love, and it's like, my kids won't stop asking me for a pool, so tonight we're watching Poltergeist.
I love that. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have wanted a pool as a kid if I saw that. And then adding to the strange atmosphere, Will Sampson, the actor who played the shaman, who passed away, performed a real-life exorcism on the set after filming one night. Sampson, a medicine man in real life, did this to cleanse the set and calm the nerves of the cast and crew, who were just a little unsettled by everything that was happening around the production.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So these combinations of deaths and strange occurrences and just the lingering legends have left many to wonder if the Poltergeist trilogy was truly cursed, or if these tragic events were just a series of unfortunate coincidences. Whatever the case, the story of the Poltergeist curse continues to captivate the imagination of fans. So there you have it, a true life haunting that inspired one of the most terrifying movies of all time. The Herman's family ordeal might not have involved portals to other dimensions or skeletal corpses rising from the ground, but it still stands as one of the most unsettling poltergeist stories ever recorded. Sometimes the real stories are just as haunting as anything Hollywood can dream up.
That's fascinating.
Thanks.
I had no idea it was actually based off of, however loosely, but still based off of a movie.
I know, because when I had said to do this movie for this month, you were like, well, the Poltergeist isn't based off of real story. I'm like, according to Google, it is, Kelly. It showed up on my list when I Googled horror movies based off of true stories.
Yes, yes.
And you didn't believe me.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't.
But now I know.
Good. I'm glad you know. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode about the eerie and unsettling world of Poltergeist. From its spine-chilling storyline to the mysterious curse that has haunted its legacy.
If you've loved what you've heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. Your support helps us reach more listeners and share even more spooky stories.
And make sure that you follow us on Instagram at notmyghostpodcast and on Facebook at Not My Ghost, Not My Problem. We post updates every week for the episode and other fun things to do and photos and just cool stuff. So go follow us.
Please. If you want even more ghostly content, consider joining our Patreon. We have some fantastic exclusive perks for our supporters. They're getting 2 bonus episodes this month because we were unable to do one in September.
Yes, they are. One is, well, by the time this episode comes out, they'll probably have both of them, or definitely one, maybe the second one.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And if you've ever had a spine-tingling paranormal encounter, share your story with us at notmyghostpodcast@gmail.com, and you just might hear it featured on a future episode.
Thank you for joining us on this chilly exploration of poltergeists and the mysterious forces that surround them. Remember, the next time you see an object mysteriously fly across the room, keep this in mind.
If it's not your poltergeist,
it's not your problem.
Until next time, stay spooky
and stay skeptical.